All right, let's start chapter 5 in Bio 105. And chapter 5 deals with the integumentary system. So the integumentary system is our skin and the organs associated with it, like sweat glands and sebaceous glands. All right, so let's start off looking at the functions of the skin. So one function is protection from the environment. So you can see these kids running along the beach. That skin is protecting their body from abrasion, from the sand there, but also protection against ultraviolet radiation coming from the sun. We also use our skin for body temperature regulation. So not only are thermoreceptors housed in here, but we can also push blood to our skin surface to lose more heat or reduce blood flow from our skin surface to retain more heat in our body. Next is just simple cutaneous sensations. So cutaneous sensations are skin sensations. So pain, pressure, pleasure, temperature, these are things that we feel through our skin. Itch is another one. What's also happening with these kids on the beach is they're producing vitamin D. So as we're exposed to sunlight, that ultraviolet radiation is going to help us produce vitamin D. Our skin is also used as a blood reservoir, so we can store extra blood there. And it's also used, as you can see in this picture, for nonverbal communications, right? We can communicate with other humans about our feelings and stuff like that. I don't know what the chimp is saying. I don't know nonverbal communication with chimps. All right, so let's take a look at the skin and its tissues. So starting here, so we have three layers. We have the epidermis we're going to talk about, the dermis, and then the subcutaneous. Subcutaneous are also known as the hypodermis. So our epidermis up here is our outer epithelial layer of skin. It's composed of stratified squamous epithelium, and like all epithelial tissues, it lacks blood vessels. So just to let you know, we lose out of our sweat glands about 500 milliliters of water off our skin per day. So that has to be replenished. If you live in a dry environment, you're going to lose more. If you live in a more humid environment, you're going to lose less. All right, so let's take a look at the skins in our epidermis. So this is showing a lot of those skin cells there, cells in our epidermis. So the first are called keratinocytes. So keratinocytes are cells that produce keratin. So these are typical skin cells. So here's what they look like here. These are keratinocytes up there as well. All right, so typical skin cells. Next are melanocytes. So these are showing melanocytes here. These are cells that produce melanin. Now melanin is a dark brown pigment. Melanin is taken up by those keratinocytes. So we're going to show it here. Here's a melanocyte. Here's keratinocytes taking up that melanin. And what melanin does is it protects us against ultraviolet radiation, okay, or ultraviolet light. So the more melanin you produce, the better your protection is. All right. Now these melanocytes are found in the stratum basal, the lowest layer of the of our epidermis, which we'll get to in a little bit. Let's go back to this picture. Here we see a dendritic cell. Dendritic cells are macrophages that are going to help activate the immune system. And then lastly is a tactile cell, which is what we see there. These are cells that are associated with touch sensory nerve endings. Okay, so they're going to help sense touch there. All right, let's take a look at the layers of the epidermis. So you can see those on the side over here, the different layers. The bottom layer is a stratum basal. All right, so that's a bottom layer of our epidermis, so basal. The layer above that is a stratum spinosum. Here you can see the cells kind of flatten out. That's the stratum granulosum. Above that is a stratum lucidum. It's only a couple of cell layers thick, and stratum lucidum is only found in thick skin. It's not found in thin skin. So thick skin is skin found on the palms of our hands, or soles of our feet, and corresponding sides on our fingers and toes. Thin skin is found everywhere else on our body. Okay? And then the top layer is the stratum corneum. And the stratum corneum is made of all dead cells. All right? And it's much thicker in thick skin than it is in thin skin. All right, let's look at skin growth. So here, new cells are made down here in the stratum basal. So mitotic divisions are occurring here all the time. We're producing new skin cells, new keratinocytes. And when those new cells are made, they're pushed up into the stratum spinosum. Well, there's already a cell there in the stratum spinosum, so as we make a new cell, we're going to push those older cells up. And as we make new cells underneath those are going to push those cells up, and so on and so on. And that's how new cells are made all the time. They're going to push those older cells up. Well, as those cells get into the stratum spinosum, those cells are going to make and fill with keratin. Okay? And so as they continue to move up, those cells are going to start to flatten out and die. And the reason they start to die is because there's no blood supply in our epidermis. These cells down here get nutrients from the dermis, which is below. And so as cells get further and further away from the dermis, they get less and less nutrients, and so they're going to begin to die. And so they're going to flatten out as well. And by that point, we're in the stratum granulosum. All right? So by the time we get up here to the stratum corneum, we have all dead cells there. Now, it takes about 2 weeks to make a new cell to get to the stratum corneum, and then it takes about another 2 weeks before that cell gets to the top of the stratum corneum and gets shed. All right? We make about 1 million skin cells per day, which means we shed about 1 million skin cells per day. So we're constantly making them, constantly shedding them all the time. Wherever skin gets rubbed, like on the palms of your hands, if you do some yard work or whatever, you're going to get a higher production of cells in those areas. All right? And so this is what produces calluses on your hands and corns on your feet.